Would I be the asshole for shading my parents for taking my sister's kids to Disneyland but not mine? It's a morally gray area for most adults. Yes, I'm 34 and should be able to take my 2 kids to Disneyland myself. But my sister, 37, had 6 children. My parents have taken 3 of them to Disneyland before. Fully covered, my sister never paid a dime. The youngest is only 2, so she's too young for the trip. My parents always promised to take my daughters, 5 and 8 as well, since it became a family tradition. Fast forward, my sister died suddenly almost a year ago. My parents now have guardianship over some of her kids, and they have custody plans with the fathers of the others. We spent the last year in an intense legal battle with distant family members who wanted to adopt the kids. They lost. In the meantime, I've been actively helping raise them, managing daycare, after-school activities, and even enrolling them in the same school as my kids. They play on the same basketball team. All of them have been together constantly, trying to get through the grief. Now that my parents won custody, and with the anniversary of my sister's death coming up, they're taking her kids to Disneyland and leaving mine out. My kids don't know yet. We've had a tough year too. I'm going through a divorce and couldn't afford a trip like this, especially with such short notice. What hurts most is that this trip was promised to my girls, even planned last year. It was canceled when my sister died. I've supported my parents through their grief. I've done everything I could to help care for my sister's children. And now my daughters are being excluded. It will crush them. Is it time for me to pull back emotionally and reassess this relationship? Maybe Grandma and Grandpa no longer need free babysitting or a shoulder to cry on. WIBTA, if I cut off my emotional and physical support over this Disneyland trip? Null.
If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to Inner Lens if you haven't already. Your support helps us keep creating content like this. Also, hit the notification bell so you never miss more interesting stories. And if you have any suggestions or stories you'd like to hear, leave them in the comments.
Update. Thanks for all your input. I know the internet can be brutally honest. That's why I came here. My mom had already booked a hotel and tickets last year for me, the girls, herself, and my adult niece. It didn't happen. I never told my daughters, just in case, especially since I was responsible for our airfare during the divorce. My sister died of an overdose. She worked as a case manager for people struggling with substance use. And yes, she was using while working. So, there's not a lot of love lost. Also, my nieces and nephews hate being called orphans. Please avoid that label. It's painful. To be honest, this isn't new. My parents have done this kind of thing for years. My sister's death didn't change that. This time they even hid the trip from me until the last minute. I explained how heartbreaking this would be for my girls. Their cousins will come back full of stories and they go to the same school, daycare, and sports team. They'll hear about it constantly, and this is now a second trip for some of those cousins. I've booked a weekend beach trip. It's not Disneyland, but the girls are excited. Now I just have to figure out how to soften the blow when they hear about what their cousins did instead. I don't want to hurt my parents, especially not near the anniversary of my sister's passing. But I also can't let them hurt my children with such obvious favoritism. If that makes me selfish, maybe I don't want to be right.
My focus is on your kids. It sounds to me like your parents are focusing on their other grandchildren, which is understandable. You should prioritize your children so that you make them feel special even if their grandparents cannot. It is up to your parents to explain to your kids why they promised to take them to Disneyland but aren't taking them now.
I'd make sure the parents understand this will create a distrust between her kids and themselves. When adults make a promise and break it, kids tend to stop trusting them. The parents should be the ones to explain why they broke their promise to them.
Talk to them. They lost a daughter. They had a court battle. They're raising their grandchildren when they're old and tired and grieving and traumatized. Tell them your children are also struggling. Divorce is common, but it still sends their lives into upheaval. It's not about it being your kids' turn, but about them treating their grandkids differently, and that will have natural consequences of making your kids feel left out and likely creating a lot of hard feelings towards the cousins, which isn't fair to any of them. Don't look at this as I've done so much for you, because that's just a bad look. approaching it as, it's your money and your decision, but the kids are going to be hurt. So how do we navigate this? The last thing your nibblings need is their peer support, people resenting them. It's setting everyone up for failure. It also seems morbid to mark an anniversary of her death this way. It might hit the kids hard.
OMG, thank you for this. This is the most sane advice I have seen here. Talk to your parents. It's been an epically shitty year for everyone. Honestly, for the amount of dollars a Disney trip would be for 6 kids, the parents could plan a huge family trip with OP and all the grands somewhere where the kids can just run around and be kids and maybe bond a bit as cousins. Since it's the anniversary of Mom's death, it's better if the kids can just have that space to be sad. There feels like there would be a lot of pressure on those kids to be happy because it's Disney and don't ruin it for your siblings. If you're just renting a lake house or something, then the kids can have the option of going inside and not trying to ignore the sad, bad crying feelings.
The OP is not being selfish. He's emotionally exhausted. He's been carrying far more than his share, supporting his grieving parents, stepping in to help raise his sister's children, all while going through his own divorce and trying to keep life steady for his own daughters. What hurts the most is that after giving so much, he watches his daughters being left out of something that was also promised to them. This isn't just about Disneyland. It's about what that trip symbolizes. Inclusion, love, being remembered. No one is denying the grandparents' grief or the pain the other kids are going through. But this is a different kind of pain. Watching your own children be forgotten when they've also had a tough year and didn't deserve to be excluded. OP isn't asking for favors. He's asking for emotional fairness. And when favoritism becomes a pattern, even when unspoken, it's valid to want to set boundaries. This isn't revenge, it's self-respect. And sometimes that's love too, even when it hurts. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to Inner Lens and hit the notification bell so you never miss any of our stories. Your support means a lot and helps us keep bringing interesting, high-quality content. Join the community and share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think and what types of stories you'd like to hear next. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you in the next video.